Games based on TV shows and cartoons isn't anything new, and the majority of times they tend to be pretty bad. However, within the shit pile you tend to find the odd hidden gem, like Ed and Eddie the Misadventures. The game itself is pretty fun, and one day I would love to go into why. But instead today we're looking at a more recent Cartoon Network adaptation which was met with fairly negative reviews, and that's Battle Crashers. I'm not the only one thinking this sounds a bit tacky, right? Battle Crashers is, well, it's a game. Released in November last year, Battle Crashers is a basic beat-em-up featuring the current line of Cartoon Network shows. You've got Uncle Grandpa, Finn and Jake from Adventure Time, Mordecai and Rigby from Regular Show, Gumball from The Amazing World of Gumball, and Steven Universe. And then there's Clarence. Yeah, I have no fucking clue who Clarence is, but from looking him up, I wish he could remain a mystery. So the plot for the game is fairly simple. Uncle Grandpa is driving his motorhome when suddenly he falls asleep at the wheel because, well, that's Uncle Grandpa. During his mysterious slumber, someone messes with the gearbox settings and sets it to an option to crash through realities. Okay. And while crashing through some realities, the motorhome ends up picking up the main characters along the way. And when I say picking them up, I don't mean just, oh, get in. I mean they're unfortunate enough to get hit by the fucking thing and dragged into this mess. And well, for a kids game, we're off to a great start. Now remember kids, never fall asleep when driving or you'll break through realities and hit pedestrians. Oh god, this game's going to be terrible, isn't it? So, from looking at the title screen itself, something seems off. I mean, look at the animations for everyone. While I understand that it's not going to be animated by the normal teams, it feels wrong. It might be because I'm used to seeing how they act in the show, so for now, I'll let it slide. So when you start off the game, you can see that each world consists of 2 levels and a boss stage. So overall, 6 bosses and 12 levels, which is very small. I can't see this taking long to beat. You start off in the world of Clarence and you can only play as Clarence at first. It would have been nice to play as other characters, but I can see why they've done it. Maybe it's so you have to play as the character in their realm to unlock. No, wait, that's just gone out the window. Gumball's right in front of me. Right. Let me rephrase that. Could it be so you get a better idea of the characters and it also gives you a bit more choice? And now there's fucking Finn and Jake. Okay, is there anybody else who's going to come in the first level of this game? Oh, Uncle Grandpa. Brilliant. So I guess that means we're going to get all the characters in the first level. However, we don't, because Steven and Mordecai aren't unlocked till after you beat the first world. So why do we have to wait longer for those two, but you get the rest of them the first fucking 10 minutes of the game? No, I don't even care. It's a stupid choice on their end. We'll just go with it. Something you may have noticed a moment ago, which I didn't mention, is the voice acting. That's because there is none. No character in this game talks, like, at all. In the introduction to the game, you hear some shitty stock sound effect for snoring. When you meet Gumball or any of the other characters or NPCs in this game, the music just dims for some dumb reason and then you just get a text box appear. Was there a reason there's no voice acting in this game? It's a Cartoon Network game with characters from fucking Cartoon Network shows. I can understand that getting everyone to record new lines would have been time and cost consuming, but surely you could use some pre-recorded lines for the shows in the game to give everyone a bit of character and then leave the NPCs to text only. Instead, it's just stock sound effects for the attacks and that's it. Fine, that's fine by me, whatever. Maybe the game will redeem itself from the gameplay. And to no one's surprise, there's not much to say about the gameplay aspects within the game itself, as there's nothing to point out. It looks like they took the template of a beat-em-up game and just slapped Cartoon Network over it. The gameplay itself is very, very basic, with the only thing worth mentioning is how each character has different styles in their attack. Uncle Grandpa just seems to change weapons randomly because that's what he does. Gumball has a short distance attack which is fairly weak but has a decent throwable. Steven can just make bubbles that pop, which for Steven that is very underwhelming and very insulting. Finn and Jake have a mallet and are the strongest out of the bunch. Mordecai and Rigby have a long range shock attack which is fucking broken as hell. And then there's Clarence. He's just shit, I don't even know why he's in the game. He's seriously the worst character in the game, and with Uncle Grandpa being followed close by second. Basically, if you want to play the game and have a bit of fun, play as Finn or Mordecai because they're pretty much the only powerful ones. Throughout the game, you'll visit different realities or shows depending on how you look at it, and each world tends to have a little trait from time to time. However, with how little you see it, it's not really worth mentioning. Gumball's world has the most creativity behind it, with both levels having different scenarios behind them. But before you can reach any level with anything interesting, you have to go through Clarence's world, and then after beating the first 3 levels, you travel to Steven's universe. I made another funny. Get it? Because it's called Steven's universe? No? Oh well, why don't you fuck off then, you boring piece of shit. Upon starting the beach level, you unlock Steven, which would have made more sense if it wasn't for the fact that you unlock over half the characters in the first bloody level, but maybe they kept him back because they realised how much shit of a job they did with Steven. They didn't expect anybody to get past the first 3 levels of the game. Also, speaking of shit jobs, let's talk about the music for a moment. It's fucking garbage. At first I honestly thought, because I had never watched Clarence, this was music from the show. so I didn't really give much of a thought to it. But then you end up hearing the same couple of songs over and over and over in each world. I mean, listen to the main menu music. I don't know about you, but I'm getting the whole cartoon experience from this, aren't I? It sounds like something you could find in a music library for copyright-free music. It doesn't fit at all on this game. Actual music from the show would have actually been a really nice touch. But hey, at least the items and enemies are from the show, which is fitting. The enemies in Battle Crashes are characters from other shows with a shattered glass effect applied on top. Which, I mean, it looks alright. It might explain why the banana guards attack Infinite Jake. Also, from what I gathered, there's only 3 items in the game. Basically, a generic invisibility item, a temporary power-up, and then finally a radio, which I'd like to call a one-hit wonder. With the radio, each character can call upon someone from their world to help kill everything on the screen. When I first read this, I thought that would be another character that spawns on the level, which helps you temporarily. And that sounds pretty cool. Of course, we didn't get that. Instead, we got a short animation of a character doing something, and you can't skip this. So every time you get this power-up, you have to watch it every time. If you're playing a different character, you get a different version of the animation with one of their characters. But it's the same thing. I wouldn't mind too much if the animation quality wasn't terrible, but also you have to use these because you lose them. The devs thought it would be a clever idea to make so many of these in the game that if you pick one up and there's only one gunter on the screen, you may as well use it, because you're going to lose it in 5 seconds. You know, I'm actually starting to see other people dislike this game. Anyway, after progressing to the end of the first level on Steven's Universe, you learn about the game's biggest problem, and that's backtracking. Keep in mind, this is the 4th level in the game, so why you already have to go back on yourself is beyond me. But once you progress all the way to the end of the level, you're greeted by Richard Waterson, who tells you, and I think this is fucking gold, you need to find a map of Beach City before you can progress any further in this level, and the map is located back in Clarence's world and skips from a regular show currently has possession of it. Wait, hold the fuck up. So let's retrace our steps a moment. Richard, from the Amazing World of Gumball, is in Beach City and has told the group, which includes Steven, who comes from Beach City, that they need a map of the town or they might get lost, and skips from regular show, who's in another world, has possession of the map. Are you fucking kidding me? Who in the dev team thought this was a clever idea on the 4th level of the fucking game to introduce backtracking in a side-scrolling beat-em-up? Right, you know what? We'll accept it. It could be due to the worlds being opened up now that people can go from one world to another. So I go back, find skips, get the map, and just so you know, you have to beat the level a second time to keep the item. You can't just find it and go, right, that's it, I'm done, I'm quitting. The game doesn't want to be that simple. Instead I have to go and progress all the way through this level, then all the way back through each level, just to tell Richard I have the map, even though Steven is in my fucking group, just to finish this fucking level. Now you might think I'm getting a bit too pissy about this, and I wouldn't be if the maps were actually fun to progress through. At the end of every level now though, I do get worried that I'm going to see an NPC telling me, oh hey Ben, time to go back through that level you just played about 5 minutes ago just to look at the great job we did on the level design. Which brings me onto the subject of how the levels in this game are presented. The objects and the characters seem way too out of place in this game. It's like the original artist has made the level background and then all the stuff that moves on top has just been placed there like a sticker or a fan flash animation going, holy shit, I just realised what I don't like about this game. Okay, so you remember earlier how I mentioned how the animations looked wrong? This is what I meant. Due to how everything looks, it just seems that this was made by a couple of fans of the show, which isn't a bad thing if it was a Flash game. How much is this game being sold for again? Roughly £30? Yeah, that's fine for a Flash animation game. It's perfectly justified for £30. Also, I don't know what the hell they did. Even though this is meant to be 2D sprites on a semi-3D world, finding where on the map an item is located is a goddamn nightmare. You'll either walk into the glass shatter by accident, miss the object you're trying to grab completely, or my favourite, especially in the running segments, you get caught on every single goddamn object that's placed right in front of you. The skill of programming in this game is so weird. Some parts are actually alright and then other parts are just shit. I mentioned earlier that levels do introduce little map specific mechanics like in Gumball's world. Enemies only spawn when the class dismiss bell goes off, but you don't see these mechanics often, so it can be glimpsed over. You end up having to revisit levels, however, as the developers really love the idea of replaying levels to a point where you unlock 2 more difficulties just because you have to replay the level with a certain difficulty. These 2 being Fantasy and Inferno. Both have this really horrible overlay which makes it really hard to see what's going on in the game, and at times I can't even tell if an enemy has an ability like poison or shock or fire. It's ugly to look at and it really fucking hurts my eyes. I really don't understand why they they didn't just make more levels instead, as the game is way too short. It doesn't justify going back to a location you just went to just over 20 minutes ago, and when I say short, I mean I beat this game in just over 3 hours short. Even with the shitty backtracking system in place, it still didn't take long to beat. And do you want to know how many times you have to backtrack? Right, so you see those little secret items at the bottom, yeah? Well, they're not secret. You have to go back and replay a level, as one of the NPCs will stop you from progressing until you get it. They will tell you where it is, so if you want a good idea of how many times you have to replay a level, double each item and it shows you how many times you have to replay a level. Now you see those shards at the section at the bottom right? Well, these are the 4 items that you need to collect to fight the final boss. And when do you get informed about these shards? Once you get to the end of the second regular show level and you find skips, it tells you that you have to go to find the other 4 shards before unlocking the gate to the final fight. Can you collect these in any order, or while you're going through the game? Of course not. This means you have to go through levels again in a certain order, just to stretch out the game a little bit more, and you get one last little bit of bullshit from the second regular show level. So I consider this one of the worst designed levels in the game because it's made as a maze. While it's a simple maze, it is very boring and it is just not interesting at all, so you have to go through it twice just to get to the end of the level to see skips again, just to unlock the last little bit of that level. Then you can go to the final boss. You know, this game could be wrapped up with the single word tedious. I'm glad it's short in some ways, because if I had to play any longer with all this backtracking, I'll probably gouge my eyes out. So finally we open the gate and then we get to go to the final boss. And the reason why I haven't even mentioned the bosses in this game so far is because they're all shit. Excluding the final boss and the internet boss from Gumball's World. While all the bosses are references to the show, most of them can be beaten within 5 minutes, with little to no effort. I would have expected these to be a bit more challenging, but instead they make Necky from Donkey Kong Country seem challenging. The final boss is the Reaper from the regular show, and is the only boss that I had to think about what I was doing at first. There's no real suggestions on what to do at points, and that's a good thing. I enjoy the idea of being kept on my toes. However, once you beat him, that's it. The game's over. However, you do get a final cutscene, if you can even call it that, and I consider this where the devs put the final nail in the coffin. So basically, it's just the old cliche of, oh, it's someone in a mask, and it goes through every character from each show just to say, hey guys, it's a Cartoon Network game, I hope you remember this. Unfortunately, you have to remember that. And then the villain actually ends out to be Uncle Grandpa. And funnily enough, this makes sense because that's pretty much the show of Uncle Grandpa in a nutshell. But after that, the game just ends. You unlock in hardcore mode, but honestly, who on earth would want to replay this game a second time? I can understand that some people may find it fun with friends, but of course, I don't have friends. But as someone who is a fan of Adventure Time, Steven Universe and regular show, this game is just an insult. And I can't argue with the scoring that it got. Even second-hand in stores, this game is being sold for like £15. That's like £5 per hour gameplay. That's more expensive than parking your car for an hour. And on that loving remark, I have been Sir Crackerbob, and have a good day.